And greetings gamers, and welcome to this video explaining what happened in sessions 1 and 2, quote unquote, the first adventure. This adventure basically, I took the fan created adventure, the Oleander Maw, and made slight tweaks, but it's very similar. And I'll explain those tweaks when we get to them. So as the adventure starts, at this point I only have 3 players. Chloe playing Naraval, Adam playing Jason Burke, and Yordi playing Naris. So as the adventure starts, they're all in this inn that's north of Redcliffe. It's on the road, on the Imperial Highway. When they're chilling, they're in there for the night. They've taken their supper, what have you. And so, of course, they're not alone in this group of hunters that have just come in from a day of hunting in the various countrysides surrounding the area, a bit in the Frostback Mountains, a bit surrounding Lake Cadenhead, that type of thing. And for these guys, as I recall, the adventure itself says to make, they have stats from, but what I do for my NPCs is that I actually create them. I don't flat out do the things. It makes them a bit tougher, but generally, I level the people accordingly. In that regard, these guys, I used the fan esoterica and made these guys civilians. So they weren't that strong in the grand scheme of things, but they had various skills, like, hunting and stuff. So they were mostly, I gave them the hunters. They had, short bows, and I think one of them had, a quarterstaff and a dagger or something like that. And so, the adventure really starts when all of a sudden, this elf basically walks through the door, panting heavily, as if, he's just run a marathon, and he has, basically imploring for people to help him. Now, of course, the hunters immediately took issue with him being an elf and asked him to leave. And in fact, just prior to him entering the door, there was an entire scene dedicated where they had issue with Naris, the Orlesian city elf, played by Yordi, being in the tavern. Basically Naris had just arrived, I think, in a tavern, and they said what, we don't take kindly to you. And then there was a slight incident, and then just as it was reaching its crescendo, things were calming down. Oxymoron there, but never mind. This elf walks in, and so he's no, we're not taking another, type of thing. And so he's they're essentially the lead hunters bullying the elf, saying we're gonna beat you up if you don't leave, stuff like that. And so it was Jason, Adam's character, Jason Burke, who basically stood forward, slightly unsheathing his sword, just to get the glint of the blade going, and basically he intimidated him. He's you lay a hand on that man and you shall suffer my blade, something like that. And so I roll their willpower courage to see if they back down, and sure enough, I think only one of them succeeded, but it wasn't the leader. The one really insulting, he failed. So I had I was oh Jesus, dude, we no need for that, you're really gonna murder us for this? So so basically they leave, and the elf thanks him. He's oh, thank you so much for that. And in essence, he he explains the plot hook of I come from the village of Terin to the north, and it's it's under attack, as it were. It's something's happened there, because the elf is in essence the servant to the mayor of the ban of Terin. And so the last time the elf saw him, his master, he the master was he was clutching his side. He was clearly bleeding out of it, and he basically collapses in the room as he grabs his the elf, Lindell, his name is, finally. He grabs Lindell and he goes just run, get help, type of thing. So he runs, and the nearest quote unquote place he can think of, in terms of, because it's dark, he's not thinking straight. He thinks, I'll go to Redcliffe. So he just bolts down this road as fast as he can. And so basically he runs for I think it's a day or so, a day and a bit, in terms of overworld travel. So he's been running, so he's very tired and all that. And in essence, he explained this to Jason, who immediately, because he's very paladin-esque, in this regard, in terms of this, and goes, yes, like, of course I shall go with you, and I shall aid you in this thing. Upon the mention of, oh, thank you, I'm sure the band will reward you handsomely, all of a sudden Naris's ears perk up because there's rewards involved. And of course that leaves Nara, who basically tags along because, it's the plot hook. And it's like, I want to play today, so yeah, I'll come along. It's just one of those, sometimes you don't, you can't plan for everything to go so well. But it's like, she played ball, and I was grateful for that. So, they travel over the world, and they travel up the road, and they finally arrive at this bridge, which is the quote-unquote first combat of the game, where in essence, I had to make like perception tests and what have you, and it's a classic, bandits on the bridge. Again, they were civilians who I equipped with. I think one of them, the lead guy, basically had throwing daggers, and the rest had clubs and stuff like that. Again, I went easy on them with like civilians, so they could beat them up rather easily. And so they had. It's a classic. So they tried to cross the bridge, and the lead guy goes, "Ho ho, hold there, friends. You need to pay the toll." And so, I think the toll was something like 15 silver per person, which I think they could have paid, but it would have like wiped them clean. They wouldn't have had any money left at that point. And of course, they think, this is probably bullshit, because the bandit, he's good at his job. He spins a yarn of, well, this is for the militia. It's a militia tax. We're paying for the militia to, keep these lands safe. There's been various, troublesome things going on here. Like there's been emergent darkspawn, what have you. Yeah, no, seriously, type of thing. So, he's playing the card, but they figure it's probably bullshit. So they go bullshit to that, and they immediately, they rush him. So, unfortunately, they hadn't planned on the bridge being booby-trapped. So what happens is that Jason, the lead, well, yeah, I think he won initiative. So he basically just runs down this bridge that's got 3 traps on it. And so he perception check for the first one, fails, runs into it, takes. I think it was just D6 damage. But at level 1, I mean, he had probably something like 35 health, maybe 40-ish, closer to. So it took him a bit down. So he took D6 damage. Another trap runs into it, D6 damage. The third trap runs into it, D6 damage. He keeps failing to perception because he quote unquote dump stats it by not putting any points into it. So he basically, at that point, he clears the bridge basically of things. But of course the players don't know this because traps are hidden. I've hidden the traps. So what happens is that Naris afterwards basically goes, I'm not going on the bridge. I think it's trapped. He basically says, can I leap onto, because it's a stone bridge, a nice sturdy stone bridge. It's along the Imperial Highway, so it does its job well. He goes, can I leap onto the railing of the bridge, the side thing, and just run across that, and then because he's got speed up the ass for being an elf and high dex and all that, so he could actually get across the bridge in one go. So he goes, can I just leap on there, go across there, and then leap onto the guy at the other end and stab him with my stiletto? And I go, yeah, probably. So he does his thing, he does his, I had him roll checks, he does I think I had him do an acrobatics check to run along the railing, and then to leap off at the end he had to do a jumping test, which is strength, I think. So not playing all to its strength. You had to mix and match. But sure enough, he rolled well, he did well, and I gave it to him. That's an example of, it's not in the book, but as a GM, when a player gives you something like that, when a player gives you lemons, make lemonade, because it made for a cool scene. So, he leaps at this guy and he stabs him. He doesn't kill him right, but he very nearly does. Because, he's not attacking the lead bandit, let's say. He's attacking one of the things. Because it's the lead bandit, and I think he was accompanied by 3 or 4 guys. I forget the numbers exactly. It may have been 4. So, it's a decent number. But they go down easy. So he stabs this guy, he almost kills him, and I think that guy actually runs away afterwards. leaving basically Nara, who basically runs up and engages the lead guy, because Jason basically is dealing with one of the stooges, quote unquote, one of the minions. So Nara comes in, swings with this guy. This guy takes a hit like you wouldn't believe. He's almost dead. So I have him run away, and he starts flinging his knives, which I think he misses completely because he's so in pain or what have you. And what happened was really funny because Jason is a sword and board fighter. He's got a sword and shield, so his defense was the highest of the groups. Yet he was the one having the most trouble killing the person he was fighting. In a sense, it was basically him versus a guy with a club. As I said, the minions had basically clubs, and so it was basically a back and forth. And the minion was actually, I was rolling really well for this guy, so he was stunting. He was like mighty blowing, knocking him prone, which is messing him up quite severely. Meanwhile, Nara, which is these guys on the bridge. So you have Nara and Naris on the other side of the bridge, basically just cleaning house, just mopping up everything else, while Lindell chills on the safe side of the bridge, as it were. So long story short, they mop up the bandits with, I think one of them gets away because he's like, screw this type of thing. And so, they take their breather and, they look around for the spoils of war, like for a better term. And they, in essence, they find, some copper and what have you, but the main thing they find is a wedding invitation for the band's daughter in Terin. I think it's marrying some guy, and Lindell, I informed him, that's the band's daughter, and as I recall, it's the son of a blacksmith, the guy? Anyway, it's like a lowborn, quote-unquote, guy, but that's the thing with Ferelden, it's that lowborns, you can be, through merit, you can rise up, which is, a handy little doodad. And so they at that point continue their quest, and they essentially keep walking up until they have to basically I inform them that it's starting to get dark. You probably need to take shelter for the evening. So at this point, in the adventure, I have them basically they come across this old worn down shack at the side of the road. It's it has a roof. it's good for that. It wouldn't be a long term thing. Just before the evening, I gave them a place to rest. Even though they all had tents and what have you, I figured I'll give them a structure, and it allowed for this little encounter where, in essence, I said, "You arrive here. Do you wish to rest for the evening?" And they're like, "No, we must push onward." I was very surprised by this. I figured, no, they'd probably want to stay. I'm like, no. They go, we push onward. And I'm like, okay, wasn't expecting this. So I kind of plot railroaded again in the sense of, well, I say that, but in the adventure itself, it does mention that if they don't take the bait, quote unquote, that Lindell, that's why you should always have an NPC somewhat with the party, because you can throw things like this at him. Where Lindell basically, he notices something on the road as they look back, because they keep walking, and all of a sudden they notice Lindell isn't with them. So they look back and they see Lindell in the middle of the road, by the shack. He sees this little wooden box, and he's like, that's strange. So he picks it up, and he's looking at it, he opens it up, he smells it, and it smells nice, flowery, and all that. And then all of a sudden they hear just howling and roaring, and boom, blight wolves emerge from the various foliage. So it's roll initiative, motherfuckers. And they were like, oh shit. And these guys basically were gunning for Lindell because he had the box, as it were. Which they didn't know at first, but they soon figured it out. So, it's I think it was 4 wolves, but it's 3 normal blight wolves and 1 alpha blight wolf. So this, from the bandits earlier, which they mopped up relatively painlessly, this was a step up. This was basically a TPK, if not for GM Fiat near the end. Because in essence, they gunned for Lindell, and that brought him around basically, because Lindell gets eaten, clawed, and bitten, and all that type of thing. But afterwards, I had Lindell with all his serious wounds, he immediately guns for the little shack, gets behind the door, then just holds the door as best he can from the ensuring wolves, leaving the party to come in and basically allowed the party to kill one of them, I think. But eventually what happened is that because these wolves were going after Lindell, they killed one of them by a focus fire, but because they were going after Lindell, they soon stopped doing that. They started like taking one each, as it were, and that didn't end too well because what happened was, in the end, it came down to me rolling really well and them rolling not so well. What happened generally. So they killed all the normal blight wolves, and once all the normal blight wolves died, basically the alpha blight wolf. I don't know if it was kind of appropriate in a sense, but I kept stunting with the alpha blight wolf, and the alpha blight wolf hurt. I mean, he was doing, I forget the numbers now, but it's like 2d6 plus 6, which is a huge amount of damage, and I was rolling like 5s and 6s on the die as well, so you're looking at like 15 damage when the group as a whole only has like 3 or 4 armor. That's like, they can take 3 hits, not much more that. So eventually, basically, it came down to Jason was the last guy standing, his comrades bleeding out, and he basically he attacks, and he was at 1 hit point. I'm serious, he was at 1 hit point. He strikes, and the Blight Wolf goes down, because I said you can use your stun point to give yourself a boost, and he hits, because he was 1 off. One of those things. And so yeah, at that point they're like, I think we're gonna rest in this shack, guys, because they were all bleeding out. Luckily, Lindell, again, reason to have NPCs there, was a proficient, he had the surgeon feat, as it were, the talent. So he was healing them up. I think he healed them up mostly to half health. I think they were up to their half HP again, because the guys who went down during the fight, of course, didn't get a breather. That's the thing. If you go down during a fight, you don't get your breather when you finish it, because you didn't get back up in time. So they heal up, and then they heal there from sleeping. That's there. They get basically to full health again, as a whole. And that's where we ended session 1. So sessions 2 started with them arriving at the outskirts of Terin, the town of Terin, the destination. Where, quick note, for this session, Yordi, the player who plays Naris, wasn't there. So if I'm not talking about Naris too much, it's because basically Naris was there, but that classic RPG trope of Naris isn't saying much, is she? Like, she's, your silent person over there, not doing much, just hanging around, I basically had her just go around doing combat and just, like, fire her bow slightly, and she rarely hit, so it worked okay, but damage sponge, So they get to the outskirts of town, and when they get there, they immediately are welcomed by a group of guards from the town, it would seem. And they give their spiel of like, what are you doing here? Like, what is your business in the town? Because the security for the wedding that's basically just happened. They're currently, you can as they arrive, say, like, you start hearing the various joyful sounds of like the wedding feasts, and like there's music going on, there's laughter, various decorations and what have you, and they're like, oh, right on. So they arrive at the outskirts, as I said, and they are welcomed by the captain of the guard, who, in essence, orders Lindell's arrest, because he's like, you ran away from the band's service, that's not on, so, you're under arrest. So I tell the group, like, do you protect Lindell? Do you protest? And like, nah, we'll let him go. I think they were still like, that Blight Wolf thing back there? Yeah, like, no, we're fine. We're not taking fully armored individuals on. That would have been silly. So they let Lindell go, and then once again he asked, like, what's your business in the thing? So one of them, I think it was Chloe, Nara, who remembers that, oh, we have this wedding invitation. So she pulls out the wedding invitation and is like, oh, well, we're here for the wedding. And the guy, like, he begrudgingly looks at this thing, and he's like, he grumbles. He's like, very well, but you shall leave your weapons with my men. You shall be able to acquire them upon leaving town again. So they all, like, begrudgingly, I'll admit, they, hand over their weapons. I think, I do believe it was Jason who managed to smuggle a dagger. It was Jason or Nara. One of them managed to smuggle a dagger through. Because I'm like, anything that's smaller than a short sword, in essence, so really, it was daggers. You can probably sneak through if you do the roll for it. And they rolled, they succeeded. It was all good. So they get to town, they get escorted to town itself, so that no problems on the way, all that jazz, and they finally arrive at the wedding feast itself, where they immediately, like, welcomed by the groom, who basically welcomes them with open arms. He's like, "Oh yes, thank you, you must be with, so-so's family." I forget the names, that's why I'm being kind of vague, you'll have to forgive me. So he's like, very happy because it's his wedding day. He's like, "Oh, lovely to meet you friends," all that jazz. And, he, like, shakes everyone's hand. He's like, "Oh, thank you. And eventually what happens is that the bride herself comes along. He's like, "Oh yes, my dashing bride," all that. And she, at one point, stumbles into Naris, and then falls on the ground, having been stabbed in the abdomen. So yeah, that happens, and the party, because Naris, as I said, Yordi's character, Yordi wasn't there, so Naris was being NPC'd at this point by me, and they were like, "Oh shit." So immediately the groom goes like, "Guards, guards!" Immediately, as he, like, clutches his bride's, like, belly. And the guard captain, being all friends with the new ban, as he now was, immediately, like, rushes and goes like, "You lot are under arrest." Now, of course, the other guys, like, plead like, we are not associated with this individual, because they immediately throw him under the bus type of scenario. But he's like, "I saw you coming to town together. You're coming with me." And point given for Chloe again, Nara, who I think, like, immediately goes like, I rip one of my, like, she had, like, a fabric thing on, I forget, but she goes like, I immediately rip this off and, like, make a makeshift bandage around her stomach. Border points. So we pick up with the group, basically, because they, I said, like, "Do you want to fight these guys?" The option is always there. And they immediately saw, like, "Well, how many are there?" And I'm like, with the guard captain himself, there's, like, 7 of them. Like, they're armored, they have, like, a shield, and most of them have maces. A few of them have swords, but mostly maces. Because, knock them out type of thing. And they're like, "Yeah, no, we're not, we'll pass." So, and I think this is, I think I took the stats. For the guard captain, I created them with, like, just a base level 1 warrior. And the guards I took from the Esoterica, once again. It was in the, I want to say it was in the 4th volume, Organizations, where they have a bunch of NPCs for each class. And I think guard's one of them, so I just took that out of the book, because honestly, I wasn't expecting them to fight, but I wanted it handy in case they did. So they, sure enough, they get to jail. And arriving in jail, basically, they arrive to see, first of all, the NPC, Gorham, who is a dwarf, surface dwarf, in jail there, and he's likely, like, miffed off. The more important one was a new player's character, Jay, who sadly basically had to drop out before I started recording these, was in jail as well, and he was playing Adrian, who was basically a Templar initiate. Sort of spear and shield Templar initiate, very phalanx type. And his character was all friends with Adam's character, Jason, so they immediately recognized each other. They trade, like, stories, like what happened, what's going on type of thing. And in essence, they go like, something's up, like, blood magic is at work here. like the new band. Something's up with him. Like I think they go like, yeah. Like, I mean, rumors around town is that like the the old band's daughter, no, uh, just like out of the blue, like fell in love with him, type of thing. So they're like, yeah, something's up. And when they like spoke out about this, they were immediately put in jail because you would be, wouldn't you? As a side note, the group is still a bit hurt from the prior battle. Um, in essence, they got offered to be looked at by like an oldish gentleman with like robes, very similar to the new band's robes. In fact, I pointed out. Basically, comes in and he's like, "Are you injured? Do you need examining?" And so the other guys were leery. So I had, because Naris, I was NPCing Naris. I had Naris get looked at and basically got healed up. Then the others went along, and it all went well. And he's like, "Ah, good day to you." And they talked to him a bit, and he just mentions like, "Oh, so I'm just a physician, what have you." And so he leaves, and they immediately start working our way to escape the jail. So it was basically the Naris, Jason, Lindell, the elf, and Nara in one cell, Jay and Jane playing Adrian in one cell, and then Gorham the dwarf in another cell. So three, there's a bunch of other cells, of course, but they were empty. So it's basically these three cells. Gorham's not trying to break out. So what happens is that Jay and Nara, in essence, they go up to the bars, they try to find a loose bar, then they like use brute strength to try and like pull a bar to, make it a slight room so they can squeeze through. I'm like, okay, so you roll for it. And I had them roll for it, and they were honestly, they were rolling high. I think they rolled like two 18s, 120, and 121. Yeah, that type of shit. So I'm like, yeah, okay, with like, take some. I said like, it takes you a few minutes, but like after a while, you jot this thing enough you think you could squeeze through. Meanwhile, Adrian comes up with the plan. He's like, is there like a thing in the cell? Is there something I can use for leverage on one of the things? I'm like, yeah, you got like your little cot over there. You could probably like jimmy it in the thing and then use that. So smart because he was by himself. So strength wise as well, it wasn't his main forte, as it were. It was one of his main fortes, but it wasn't like through the roof. So he's like, I go like, okay, yeah, you got an easier role to make. So he does his, like he rolls for it. And I'm like, he was getting like 15, 16. So I'm like, good enough. I wasn't gonna hold the whole game back because of this. But of course I go like, yeah, you guys make a ruckus doing this though. So eventually a guard walks in, and they go, oh, no, initiative time. So they basically, again, they're unarmed basically. So as I recall, Jay's character basically still has his like half, like snaps a bit, but it's still a usable like wooden like plank thing. So he's using this as an improvised weapon. So he's clobbering this guy with it. Meanwhile, Jason's guy, who is the first to go through the bars, basically just goes to this guy and hits him like twice in the head through the helmet. I should point out because it's like in the game. There's no really any simulation for the helmet. I guess there's armor, but there you go. But he like the flavor text was he runs up to this guy and he just keeps hammering him in the head. And because he stuns, he does max damage because I think he like lethal blows and does like so he does like D3 for the punch plus strength plus 2d6, and I think he rolls something max damage. So he did like something nuts, like I want to say like 16 damage with his fist and like just pummeling this guy through the helmet. So I'm like, holy shit! Like, yeah, you get the weak spot of this helmet that hasn't been like maintained in a while, and you just crush this guy, and so this guy goes down eventually, right? And again, I'm going like, okay, you make like one heck of a commotion. So they like bust through the thing to like the office area of the thing, and they see one other guard who's like, and he immediately runs out the door to try and get help because there's only two guys stationed there because there was a wedding going on, so there was guards everywhere. So they go like, right, we don't have no much time. Where are our weapons? And I'm like, well, you look through the thing. There's a room there. You could probably, like, right. I go to the thing, and I think one of them was like, right, where's the key? Where's the key? We need the key. And then I think again it was Chloe, with Nara, Nara's player, who just suggested maybe we should just try and open that door. And sure enough, the door was unlocked. So they just go, and I go, like, you open the door, and there's your weapons. There's all the confiscated items. As a point, as they finally break out, there's Gorham, the dwarf, who basically speaks up and go like, hey, would you like let me out? If you do, like, we can solve this thing together, type of thing. And they go like, you could probably use another guy in the group. Yeah, sure. Like, let's break him out. Because in essence, he was there for being drunk and disorderly and spouting like, the new ban is a blood mage type of thing while being drunk. So they were like, yeah, you sound fun. Let's go. And so, because they had Lindell and Gorham with them, they immediately get to the manor, and they see that basically the front is guarded, but Lindell mentions the servants' entrance at the back that shouldn't be guarded. And so they, in essence, go through the back way, and they arrive at the entranceway, where I modified the adventure slightly in my memory, where in the adventure, I think there's just blight wolves that come and attack, and I think, right, they've just had blight wolves. I want to like mix things up here, and it's like, why would blight wolves really be here? It doesn't make that much sense. So I, in essence, reworked it so it was shade demons, because blood magic, the fade. Ooh, so it's shade demons, and the thing with shade demons is they're incorporeal. So to hit them, they needed to stunt. This led to one of the longest battles I've ever had to have in an RPG. It's for the people that were there, for the amount of characters there, of course, relatively speaking. So, long story short, after like an hour of them swatting, not hitting, me swatting, not doing enough damage, it's a back and forth cycle. I GM Fiat that, because I remember they were like, right, this isn't going nowhere, let's run through the door and try to finish the source of this. So they go through the thing, the corridor, and I have Gorham like they were like a last stand type of like, you go, I will hold them off. But these guys are like, no, we're not leaving him behind. So they run out again and like they hold the ground with him, and I'm like, right, I have to speed this up now. So I had all the shade demons basically like merge into an alpha shade demon, just so they had one target to deal with. And when I did that, the combat went a lot faster. Anyway, so that being dealt with, they go through the corridor to basically the new band's room, and so they arrive there, and they basically, they arrive to see he has the box, the wooden box that Lindell had previously. And he's like, he's musing over it. He's like, yes, of course, type of thing. And so they're like, right, and they like all prepare to attack, weapons at the ready, and he like turns into an abomination basically. And upon turning into an abomination, he basically lifts up Gorham with like very very Sith style, using the Force. He lifts Gorham up and then just chucks him into the wall, and my favorite is that Gorham like face plants into the wall and then like falls onto the bed as he just knocked unconscious type of thing. Because that was the main reason for Gorham doing the last stand, was that I didn't want him in the boss battle, because Gorham was a level 5 warrior, currently is still, and he was there as a safety net in case in case the demons were too much of a problem, quite frankly. But there you go. I figured they could probably deal with the abominations. So they rush him, and it's one of those things where Dragon Age, it's a good system, but unless you've heavily buffed the one target, he goes down fast, and sure enough he does. Like, I think in 2 rounds he goes down, and because I didn't roll that well, his spells were meh at best, because he like uses a flame cone, at them, and they like take d6 damage. It wasn't much. So they beat him down, and sure enough, I go like, before you strike the finishing blow, he turns back into a human, and he's like panting funny as the guard captain and dispatchment of guards basically bust into the room, and they say, "Hold there." And so the player characters were debating just finish him off, saying he's a demon for Christ's sakes. But the guard captain, again, being all friends with the new band here, wasn't wasn't like too keen on the prospect of them just slaying his friend. So what happens is that the old man that came to heal them in the cell approaches and goes like, "There is another way." And spoilers for the adventure, as if you haven't gotten by just listening to this. This guy is the father of the new band. And in essence, what happens is that the new band, basically, he was pining for the old band's daughter type of thing. But he wasn't getting much anywhere. So what happens is that this old guy, the father, he comes out and goes, "Yes, I contacted this thing, that box there, the box with the Oleander Maw type of thing, the wooden box." He gives the exposition about that. It houses a desire demon that I once utilized myself, but realizing its dangers, I sealed it away, type of thing. And so basically, he used it on his son to get to have them fall in love, type of thing. So his son could get what he wanted all along, type of thing. So he goes like, "So if you wish to end his misfortunes, all you have to do is go to the Fade and defeat the demon itself." Which they basically agree to, because they figure like, if we kill this guy, we're gonna have to fight a detachment of guards, and probably this old dude who's probably a blood mage, right? And I'm going like, he's probably a blood mage, yeah, a level 10 blood mage, by the way. They would have been screwed. Actually, had they attacked the son, basically he would have started attacking them like blood mage style, and he was there to get his son out, basically. So what happens is that he opens, he does this ritual thing. He opens a portal to the Fade, and so the Naris, Nara, and Jason go through, as well as the guard captain, because Gorham's like, "The Fade, nah, I ain't going in there, man. You fucking, that's where, nah, man, not the Fade. You see me? I'm a dwarf. Fuck that." So the guard captain going like, "Yes, I shall aid you free my friend." So he goes through, and in essence, I do that little thing where I use the characters' backgrounds against them, as it were. I had them basically. Oh, I forgot. Adrian as well was there, the Templar character. I had them at character creation use their. They had gold, they had ties, that type of thing, and I sort of used that with them hallucinating, getting images, fade images that these things were happening, and I said like, well, roll a test to try and see past the deception. And what happened was they all got out of it eventually, but Nara's character was not having it, and I think she had the highest will technically, but she was just rolling badly, so she kept going and going and going in the deception, which was fun to play out. So eventually they get out, and they're in the Fade, they fight, and basically it's the map I set up was basically there's floating boulders around the place, and the demon's on one of them, so they have to first to engage in melee, because they were mostly a melee eccentric party, and you have to make climb checks, again adding skills to combat, not just focusing on you can swing a sword good, what else can you do, type of thing, to reward the people who put points into it. Which is always a good aspect, I feel. So I said you have to make a climb check, not a difficult one, because again they're level 1s, so they climb, they get up there, and it's basically engaging the demon who could fly, so it was flying around the rock, going through the rock on occasion, standing in the middle to do an area of effect spell type of thing. And so it was a toughish fight. Winter's Grasp was being cast on them, and they were taking hits. But eventually, they slay the demon. They get out of the Fade, and upon getting out of the Fade, they notice that the I think his name is Ulrich, the Blood Mage. He's no longer there. He's nowhere to be seen. The new ban is like he's quote unquote cured. Technically still a mage, I guess. That's the thing. He was because he had magical abilities, but he didn't know how to use them. So in stat wise, I started him as a rogue, using like I think the noble, the Fadus noble background. But he was a rogue. He wasn't like a mage because he wasn't trained in it at all. Probably, if he comes back into adventures, he will have changed slightly, and I'll make him a mage now. But so he's there, and sure enough, his new bride arrives, the old man's daughter, and they're still in love. Which were they in love all along? Was it the magic? Was questions being asked here? But to sum up, in essence, to summarize the ending, is the guard captain gets elected the new ban for his bravery, while the whole issue is sorted out with the new ban with his quote unquote magic and all that. The party gets rewarded money, an actual person money, and then things get complicated because I awarded them in essence magic items. They were really handy. I awarded them like the boots of the outlaw. That were left by the blood mage, which basically hides tracks. Where if people are trying to use tracking to find out where you are, they have a penalty to it because you're hiding your tracks with these boots. Which the party don't think is going to be that useful. Just gonna say punishments will be, it's one of those like the GM will punish you if you don't put points into this. Well, it's you kind of have to as the GM to make things interesting. And the other thing was, I think it was like the luck of Terin, which is kind of like, it was like an ankh, or maybe it was a horseshoe. It was like a little thing it was a pendant, I remember that, but it was like, I forget what the symbol was on the pendant. It basically allowed one reroll per day, which is huge when you think about it. And so what happens is they get awarded these things, but then they're like, well, we're going to go to the circle and denounce this place for, blood magic and what have you, because, Templar initiate in the party. So what happens is that they don't get rewarded those magic items after I go, like, if you do that, they're probably not going to give you those things. And they go, like, yeah, no, but I denounced this. What the hell? Like, he's still here, the new ban, like, he needs to go to the circle. And they're like, okay. So they don't get rewarded the magic items, but they get rewarded the money, the experience, and what have you. So, a bit of win-win, I guess, with Finn. And I think that's at the end of that session they made it to level 2. I do believe that was the case. So there we go. That ended that session there with them en route to the Circle Tower to report these guys in essence. What happened then I'll talk about in the next video. That's sessions 3 and 4, Adventure 2. But I hope you enjoyed listening to this. Feel free to comment if you have questions. I'll do my best to answer them. And, just stay tuned for more sessions. Be seeing you.